Hi. So just to make sure, am I audible? Am I visible?
Yeah, totally.
I guess so. Yeah. So let's start. Hi, this is Sarbajeet Das. I'm the founding artistic director of Theatre on Your Own, company based out of Bangalore, India. For last couple of years, I've been abroad working as an actor, as a assistant director, and as a director with a lot of good people. And Thank you, Jairangam and Deepak Geraji, for creating this platform to connect with people at this difficult time. Unfortunately, I have not followed all the events that are happening, but I've been in close touch with my colleague Faria, who has been giving me updates about this wonderful event. And I'm so happy that a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my inspirations are giving workshops, talking to people, having panel discussions, and showcasing their work too over here. So I wish them good luck. And I'm so happy that a lot of good people are coming together in these difficult times, and they've opened their arms for arts and theater. And truly, art में ही निदान है, कला में ही निदान है. So I have a very bad reputation of extending my timeline. I mostly go beyond the limitations that is given because most of the time I'm not sure how much to discuss and how far should I go with my discussion. So for now, I have a couple of minutes in this session, and I have jotted down few points so that I stick to the timeline and explain something rather than teaching, share something that I have experienced in my um, professional experience so far, working with a lot of different people, learning from them, mostly from the actors that I've worked with, the actors that I have directed, or the writers I shadow these days. Um, so there's a lot of learning and there's a lot of observation that I feel has helped me develop my work. And I think a few of them, or a few of the guideposts, as I call them, if I could share with you, probably it can help you in your own creation. So the topic that we are going to discuss is performance realism, performers realism. Um, so, because we are talking about realism, so let's broadly divide the discussion into two kinds of categories. If you have a story in mind, if you want to present it in some way, broadly you will take one of these approaches, realistic approach or anti-realistic approach. Now, um, realistic approach, as it sounds like, it's basically going to replicate what is reality, and that's what a lot of theater practitioners, a lot of storytellers, a lot of playwrights, a lot of filmmakers use. So broadly, you use the same clothes that you can connect with. The costumes are something that you can connect with. The characters are people from day to day life. The lighting, the sound, the setting, um, the stage or the camera frame is brought in as close to reality as much as possible. Now, there is a trap of falling into naturalism and getting confused with the term realism. Probably I'll throw some light on that. But broadly, that's the idea, to replicate reality as much as possible. And it's not a very new concept. It's a very known, unknown concept. And I have also failed in understanding it initially when I was trying to be real in my work. Uh, what I felt was there are a lot of playwrights, there are a lot of stories that made me think more about what makes it so interesting when we talk about reality, and why it inspires a lot of people, um, these days to be more and more real. If you read playwrights like Ibsen, the Russian playwright, Anton Chekhov, or Eugene O'Neill, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, or our very own Vijay Tendulkar, um, those characters are so complex. They create complex characters. They have very interesting socio-political issues running as a base for their stories. And in realistic setting, in realistic thought process, in using realism, they are able to question the society very easily. And the society is able to see those questions very easily because the connection happens. Um, Now, when we are talking about realism, there is always another way of presenting the same ideas symbolically, which I call anti-realism. And that is another style, and that is another discussion for some other day, especially if you're free on December 27th. Probably we can discuss about that too. That it'll be a discussion on images and issues, and which basically deals with anti-realism. So now that I've broadly categorized these two spaces, I've always seen myself, or I've seen others as a performer um, having the trouble to create in both the spaces. Now, I believe as a performer, you have a very tight window, very small window to create something, because there's a writer, there's a director involved, and both of them try to um, push their ideas and put it across on the stage or on in front of the camera. And you basically get into the position of delivering that idea. You basically executing that idea, but you will never get a satisfaction if you just deliver something. You always need your own space of uh, creation. Like I believe your life or your work should be like solving a very small yet challenging puzzle, and once you solve that puzzle, you get that satisfaction. So as a performer, you always need that kind of satisfaction to move forward in your career, the career that you're so passionate about. So how do you identify that sweet spot where you can create things, and how do you map that with the reality and be more and more real? So few of the case studies, few of the situations that I have come across, I will share with you. But before that, I will also tell you about what naturalism is. Um, Now, a small example would be the docudramas that you see these days. They are broadly inclined towards naturalism. So naturalism is a simpler manner of replicating what reality is. But realism goes a step further, where yes, you got to replicate, but you have to add a lot from your end. Now, this term, adding a lot from your end, is a very delusional term. You hear it and it sounds nice, but it took a while for me to actually understand how do I add myself while replicating reality. So let's jump into this concept of uh, performance realism. Um, let's gather some ideas before we start discussing about it. The very first drawing that you have done in your life, let me take to, let me, okay, so my moderator told me to rotate the camera, so I'm rotating it. Uh, okay, does this work? Okay, great, he says great. Okay. Um, Sorry for the hiccup. Mhm. So yeah, mm, where was I? Mm, yeah, our very first drawing. So The very first drawing that I remember I drew in my class was a glass. Some people draw an apple, some people draw a mango tree or anything. And if I remember correctly, I was not shown a real glass. I was given a painting of a glass, a picture of a glass. I basically copied that picture. But if you think carefully, uh, once you draw that glass or mango or apple couple of times, you develop the skill set to explore beyond the same apple or oranges or mangoes that you have drawn. You create caricatures out of it. You can make a funny glass. You can make a sad glass. You can make a angry glass, or you can make a human being out of it in the shape of a glass. So this exploration does need some time, and there's a process in changing that same basic structure from reality into an interesting, in fact, original structure later when you add certain elements. These certain elements that you add is basically what you have to put from your end in creating your work. And it varies from person to person. But extracting those certain elements from reality or the real life is a skill that we all need to develop as performers most of the time. Um, so how do you identify those skills? Um, Obviously there's no direct mapping that I have that I can I have it on a piece of paper or in my head that I can say if I'll be very happy if I have that in later phase of my life. But right now it's a question that I always ask myself, that what is my love in this entire scene or in this entire work that I'm doing, and where I can put that love, so that I can bring the skill to extract the that potion or that elixir of reality and keep it in my work rather than just copying the uh, picture from real life. So first guidepost that I would like to share is, let's talk about communication. Now, communication happens between two people, and there are two people exchanging words. And I have heard a lot of people give inputs that you got to listen to the other person very carefully. And if you listen to that other person carefully, you can react. Now, all these terms do work, and I believe in them, but it's not enough. It wasn't enough for me to take my scene forward or my work forward. So I started asking myself, what exactly is making a conversation in real life looks so real? And most of the time when I see a conversation on screen or on stage, in front, I don't feel that it's that real. What is that missing part? And when I started asking myself this question again and again, I saw something which made me excited about conversations. I saw that it's a form of multiple cycles happening between two people. And what does a cycle mean? I see two poles in a conversation, a sender and a receiver. And I see that sender has to invest completely, um, so that the cycle is complete. And it's the same responsibility of a receiver, but in a different way. Now, just saying the words and moving forward is not going to complete the cycle. You got to make sure that the receiver has received it well. And how do you make sure of that? Like a lot of acting teaching techniques like Meissner or Lee Strasberg, they also talk about the same thing in a different way. Like basic Meissner exercises deal with the doing exercise, or which deals with the same idea, but they don't speak about this thing explicitly. So initially, it was very confusing for me to extract, but slowly I've learned it. So as I was saying, the sender sends some information and is invested in the receiver, and he or she waits for a response. Now, what is that response that she has to wait for? That response doesn't have to be words. That response doesn't have to be a reaction. The response is an emotional response. When you get an emotional response from the receiver, at that time, you can move forward with the next cycle. And I started looking for this cycle in every conversation between two people in a scene. Now, a scene can be a 1 page long scene or 100 pages long scene, but this cycle is something that attracted me. And I could see in real life um, this cycle working. And it happens so fast that we do not observe it most of the time. And when I say an emotional response, I talk about emotional response because all the good artists, all the great performance deals with the same idea. When you invest yourself with your co-character in a scene, and when you actually wait for that emotional response to come to you, when you actually look for it, you invest yourself in that scene. You don't bother who's watching you. As Meissner say, don't perform for the audience. The same idea applies here. You invest yourself with the person, and you expect a lot from the person, and that is where reaction happens. So when people say acting is reacting, I understand it in this way: you react to an emotional response, and that needs a lot of investment from your end, and that needs a lot of time, and that needs a lot of practice. And that is one skill that has to be extracted instead of just extracting the body language of a person, the voice of a person from real life. I mean, that's all good for your database, but what is going to take your work to the other level, even if you brought in all these things? And when you say the scene is not working, it's the timing, the energy, and all these terms. I think these are very pseudo terms. They have never been very clear to me in my life. So I try to make things clear so that I can actually hit my target. Now, the same idea of conversation or communication that I'm talking about has another level where I can I can understand how the cycle is moving forward. Like, it's not only about the emotional response that we are waiting for, we are also um, waiting for a motivation to move forward. And how does motivation work here? The motivation is like this: I see every conversation in any communication that's happening between two people. I see the person talking is basically saying something like this: you should think the way I am thinking. So when I see this idea in a sender, I really get excited because I know that he or she is going to get invested in that conversation. Like in any conversation, like would you like to have tea, or it's a wonderful day today. Even if it's a simple conversation, you got to break down the psychology to this: that I want you to think the way I am thinking. Would you like to have tea? I think you should have tea. I want you to believe that you want tea. It's a wonderful day. I think it's a wonderful day. I want you to believe that it's a wonderful day. Now, when I say this thing, this is an idea for a performer or for a sender, which will motivate him or her, because you don't know what the response would be. The response can be positive, the response can be very cold, the response can be very rude, the response can be um, very different than you have expected. But that's how you fail in real life also. You don't expect the response, but you wait for an emotional response. And when you fail, you give it another try, or you change your direction of conversation, or you change your direction of emotion. Whatever, you fail, you get motivated, and you move forward. Now, this excites me in reality, and this is that factor that I compare my scene with, rather than mimicking the reality that I see. If I have to create a scene between a maid and a owner, if I have to create with a son, a scene between a father and a son, it's not just the body language, it's not just the relationship. I'm looking for this aspect from the real life, and this, I believe, increases or helps me um, create realism. Now, I talked about the sender. If you go to the receiver's end, there is also a thought process that I have extracted. I believe every receiver wants to take advantage of the sender by investing himself or herself in that conversation, because every conversation is going to give her a new information to um, get get a different perspective about the sender, or rather same idea, modifying the thought process of the sender. So when you're thinking that I'm going to convince you, she's thinking that she's going to convince me, and in that process there's a tussle that gets created, and that makes the conversation interesting. And when people talk about energy, I see energy developing this way. So I don't really know what energy means if it's not a spiritual investment in your scene. Um, so to start with, if you're starting your career in theater or films or anything, and you get a scene, you get a text, um, all the basic things that you have in your mind would help you. But when you're talking about realism, I think this channel that I have come across, or I have experienced while working with a lot of people, helped me a lot create an interesting scene. Now, there's another section. I did talk about communication. There's another section that also helps me um, extract these interesting portions of reality, is what kind of choices do I make in my scene. Like, you got to allow yourself a couple of options, and you have to invest in making those choices. Like, let's take this example. We all know bananas or milk help our body. Some say there's calcium, there's some say there's magnesium, and so people talk about it. But have you ever experienced calcium or magnesium? Do we know the taste of it? I guess no. I don't know. But then we do consume them in our day-to-day life, and we have made it a part of our life so much that we don't even judge a lot of negative reviews about these two things. Um, so if if this idea is extracted from real life, that somebody eats bananas and milk, consumes them daily, what is that choice would you make for that person to make the scene work for you? Is this is the choice of magnesium and calcium enough, or would you go into the spiritual choice of your own belief, and your own belief is so strong that magnesium and calcium don't really play a part? So I would rather research about how did I get that belief in me. Now, this is not a scene that probably you will do, but when I'm talking about choices, the selection would go from magnesium and calcium to this belief, because this belief is enough to make my audience connect with me as a performer, and I can actually leverage upon that and create something in my work. So if you go back to the same apple and apple drawing, or the drawing that you first drew in your first sketch, uh, the audience sees a real apple and your image in completely different way, but they are attracted to both. Like when you see the real apple, the audience is attracted to eat it. It generates hunger. When they see the caricature or the image, it doesn't generate hunger. Rather, it generates some kind of inspiration, some kind of curiosity, seeing the color, seeing the picture. So the audience is going to take your thing very differently. But you got to create so that you can leverage upon that creation. So this idea of making choices really plays well in creating realism for a performer. Um, the same idea, if you use it differently, like we all get trained in Navarasas, 9 emotions. We all know about that. If you're an actor, if you're a director, if you're a writer, if you're even interested in art in any form, you know about it. Like it's a multi-grain biscuit these days. Anyway, so uh, but then I also believe that there are 9 emotions that we have to have permutation combinations of to build our work or to execute our thoughts. Now, if I have to present boredom in a scene, what choices would I make to present boredom in a scene? And if I want it to look real in my work, the idea of Navrasad, the idea of body languages, the physicality of it, the thought behind it, everything will help you to a certain level. Um, but I found it very difficult, and I'm talking from my real experience. I had to present a character who was really bored, and I was supposed to be there for 5 minutes. And um, so basically, I mimicked. I'm talking about the character that I played 3 years back. Mm, It's it's a gay character in a play called Five Flights. I was supposed to be bored and sit there. I got the body language. I've seen people who are bored, so I got the body language, and there was kind of a frustration, kind of sadness, a combination of frustration, kind of irritation. So it had all the rasas that were needed to create the structure, and I felt that it was good for a picture. If somebody would have taken a picture, then probably he or she would have agreed that I was bored. But I was not very convinced the way I played bored, and I started exploring why things didn't work for me. And I started observing real people. I started seeing some scenes where the characters are bored. And one common pattern that I noticed in everything was everybody is reacting to something. And that is making them frustrated in that scene. And that is coming out as boredom. So I saw my brother's son, who was around 4, 5 years old then, and I saw him that playing with he was playing some digital video game, I guess, and then he kept that toy aside and then sat down. And kids are very honest in executing their emotions, so he sat down with a very dull body language, and I could sense boredom in him. And then this thought became more clear in my head that yes, there is a reaction which is coming out as boredom. Now, when does that reaction happen? And more I thought around it, more and more I started observing people and started reading about the psychology. I could get convinced with this idea that you're actually fighting to generate something interesting in your mind. You're fighting for excitement and failing to achieve it. And when you fail to achieve it, you either get frustrated, irritated, sad, unhappy, and that whole reaction to it comes out as boredom. So instead of mimicking a bored body language from real life, if I work on this thing in my scene while I'm creating a scene or writing a scene or executing a scene, I think I can invest myself better. I have something where I can put myself. This container has space to um, put my own reality and create something exciting. So this style of analyzing reality did help me. Talking about Chekhov's play, The Three Sisters, that's a great play. How do you see that play? Is that play about three sisters failing to reach Moscow? I see it in a different way. It's a play about three sisters fighting really hard to reach Moscow, and that idea makes the play very exciting for me. Else, it's a very dull play to many. So, this kind of analogy has helped me. So I thought uh, I could share it with you, and in a live platform when nobody is really interacting with you, it's easy. You can share these ideas. One last thing, if now that to close the session, like if you're playing a dead character, also we haven't died yet, and once we die, we are no more there. So to be real as a dead character, the thing that has helped me is I should ask myself, am I dead? So when I ask this question in my head, when this question pops up in my head, it really uh, would look real. I think this is the most honest question that will come to your mind. So when you're looking for reality of something that nobody can tell you, and no, you have not experienced in your real life, and probably you will only experience it once, it's this kind of thought that will help you be real. What are some of the plays you have been part of? Okay, I've been part of many plays. Well, I'll talk about the plays that I have directed so far. I have directed around 5 to 6 plays in the last couple of years from my company. I've directed Sakharam Binder, I've directed Adhe Adhure and Dance Like a Man, and a couple of short plays or short movies recently. Um, and over here, and I've been part of around 250 plays in India, and so far around um, 35 to 40 plays in the US. Currently, I'm directing a play named A Man Who Eats Books with Firehouse Theatre. It'll take place, probably it'll go next year if everything goes correctly. I've been part of Broadway musicals in Virginia, DC. I've been part of a lot of plays by University of Charlottesville drama department. I've assisted a lot of directors over there. There's a play that's very close to my heart. It's called Charlottesville. It's about the black and white riots that happened in Charlottesville. So yeah, around 300 plus plays as an actor and 50 plays as a director so far. And no, I've not been that fortunate. No Samuel Beckett plays. But yeah, I do watch and other people direct his plays, and it's been good. So, if you do have any questions, do ask me. I don't know how to end a live session. If it would been a workshop or a rehearsal, things would have been very different. I would have gone and gone with my discussion. Yes, story wall. What should I do to get a chance to play a role in one of your plays? Okay, I mean, it's a general response. If you want to work with anybody, send in a resume about what you have done and what your aspirations are. Drop an email as clearly as possible, and a picture, uh, headshot, not to judge how you look, but yeah, just to know that this is how the character is, and that's it. That should be the way. And if you know the person's details, drop in a message. That's all. Don't call them, just drop in a message. And good people do respond. That's what I have done. So if you do that, that helps. So if there are no more questions, and if you have questions, my email ID is artandsarbajit@gmail.com. My company's email ID is stagefortoyo@gmail.com. We have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have Instagram page, and my uh, very close friend Faria Fatima, who's our managing director, handles everything related to our company. So you can reach out to her also in case you want to just communicate with us. And as I always say, in any work, we always look for uniqueness, and that's the same thing I try to achieve in the field of art, theater, and cinema. The two very good quotes that people use. One is "We are just good friends," and the other one is "This is very different." So. So let's try to be different from our good friends, and that will encourage us to work better. No, unfortunately, I don't know that. But if you can put it in the comment, that'll help me. So thank you once again, Jairangam. Thank you, Ankit, for moderating this. Thank you, Faria, for handling me and this entire thing. Do watch out for other sessions. Do watch out for other people, and send in your feedbacks. Connect online. It's a tough time for theater, and we all want to come live and do live shows, and we will do that, inshallah. All of us will come together, and I think this pandemic has taught us a lot of good things, and a lot of people have opened their arms, and these are good signs for theater too. I'm very positive, I'm very hopeful that we'll do good next year. So with that positive thought, let me end this discussion, um, and thank you so much. See you on 27th if you're free, and if not, see you in future next year probably. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.